All right, boys, we are back in the Culture Stoke studio again. It is Mother's Day once again.
Happy day.
Happy
Beautiful day.
It's a new day. It's a new day.
It's a new day. We're grateful for it, despite the frustrations that come along with it. Well, hey, welcome to the Culture Stoke podcast. If you're joining us for the first time, I am Richard. I am the host. This is Mr. Marty Imes, co-founder of Culture Stoke, and this is Wes Love, the other co-founder.
I don't know why.
Yeah, so we're coming up on holiday season, and there's a lot of great, but also hard. You know, you just wrote an article that's like it makes me happy and sad. It's one of those things where I'm like, I like this.
It's like The Notebook.
It's exactly
not as good as
it's not as good as The Notebook. But Marty hasn't had any sleep. He's here.
No,
not
my daughter
sleeping.
woke up at 2:00, and so I'm running a little ragged.
A wing and a prayer, and about to take a match to things.
Oh, I just a pillow sounds good, but I'm excited for the day.
Yeah, that's good, man. 2:00.
Yep, 2:08 to
what
be
happened?
precise.
You just
No, she kicked her blankets off, and she couldn't get her blankets back on.
She's like, nope.
Yelling. Like I woke up I hear some distress. Oh my God. Okay, it's my kiddo.
I hear distress.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Oh yeah.
So what, you just crawl in bed with her?
No,
and
just got upstairs, got her blankets on her, and her teeth were legitimately chattering.
Oh,
I felt
geez,
horrible for her.
Because she was poor kid.
So just cold, and because both my kids usually sleep pretty warm. So
Okay.
we keep the thermostat in their rooms at like 64.
Oh yeah,
And so
that's what you want.
yeah, they sleep well, but lost her blankets, and once snuggled up, and once once I was in there, I could not get out. So
Did she stay up with you since 2? Is that
no, she wasn't up the entire time, but she would be
like
up
in and out?
Oh yeah, she's in and out, talking in her sleep.
So you're dozing
feeling
off.
my knoll to make sure I'm still here talking. Yeah, it was a thing. Mad respect, wife. Thank you for all of the years,
wives.
all of the years
Thank you.
of taking good care of her. My
Jeez.
goodness, that one night.
This one night.
One night.
Legit
Just one night.
hardest job on the planet.
100%.
Moms, yeah, for
mom.
sure, dude.
Legit.
Moms are the best.
So, but you just never fell back asleep.
No.
Bummer. Well, sorry,
well.
man.
Hey.
It's all right.
Life happens, and that's what it's how we choose to respond to it that matters.
That sounds great. And then Wes, you had kind of you had kind of a crappy morning too.
Talk about it.
We have to. The whole point was it's hilarious.
It was less funny when I woke up, and less funny for the 10 minutes it took me to realize that I made a terrible mistake last night. I was messing around with the Kindle app because I have recently wrote a book. In case you that published author.
Shameless plug. Culture Catalyst, Amazon, Kindle, hardback.
Kindle,
Get your copy now.
Kindle for 99 cents for this month, by the way.
There you go.
And then it jumps up to like $1,000.
You're like, I'm really
that's what it's worth.
trying to get that ROI.
But I was messing around with the Kindle app and how to leave reviews, and woke up this morning and the browser window popped up on my phone, and to
your
the
dismay.
page, my Amazon page, and I had a 1-star review on my book, and that was like the only review. And it took me about 10 minutes to realize, oh, I did that.
That was me. This was me.
So for 10 minutes, I was like, wow, I have made a terrible mistake in my life. I've written something that somebody really does not like.
Ironically, it was me.
I really do. I mean, because like negative self-talk is something that I am actively battling right
Wrestle
now.
with, yeah.
I have a little note on my mirror says I will stop discounting me.
Yeah, you
and
will.
I have been. It is the biggest hill for me because that has been my happy place and my self-defense mechanism. Just tell people I'm a big dumb dummy. And that's happy and healthy for me, but it's not healthy for me.
Yeah,
And boy, I'll tell you, when you see that 1-star review, even if it's your own,
goes racing.
It really just was a great way to start my morning. Actually.
Wonderful.
You know, I felt so good about things, you know, because I feel like my ego's been riding a little high lately. And I needed to be beat down
for a second.
So anywho, that was 10 minutes of just, wow, that was a lot of work to get 1 star.
Yowza.
You know, because
all to be self-inflicted.
Yeah. I mean, Arby's has better than 1 star.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Arby's catching strays.
This segment brought to you by Strays for Arby's.
Strays for Arby's. I'm trying to figure out how, like, on the Kindle you would accidentally. That's the part that's more alarming to me, is how you accidentally left yourself a 1 star.
So I can walk you through it, because
was it just you know, maybe it was your
no, because like I saw where you do the rating, and I was just like, oh, you just touch the star,
right,
and then it'll do it. But my deep self-work that I need to do would not allow me to hit the 5-star, even as a beta test.
Oh my God.
So I just went with the default.
Oh my God. Wait, so you actually pressed the 1 star?
And there's like a link below that says remove this review, and I just did not click it. So,
okay.
This is why I texted you guys this morning, and I was like, when your negative self-talk takes its final form, it's just like, I'm going to leave myself
self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, dude. Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about your book and the culture catalyst framework. So it's actually brilliant. Like I think the first time I heard it was a couple years ago. I not necessarily a expert in leadership and business and teams, but I love it. I think it's fantastic. So you should go get a book. I'm gonna keep saying it. Go get it.
You. But it's something I'm very proud of, and I just have to keep reminding myself my goal was to write a book, not sell it. Yeah. So if you like it, cool. If you don't, hit that review button.
You know what? I wanted to say something else, but it's okay.
It's fine.
And I think that's kind of like the point of our conversation today is, I don't know, confidence, disappointment, difficult hurdles, getting over like just challenges, and not necessarily, I think we even said like, we're kind of going to talk about life today. If anything, you're just going to hear 3 dudes talk about our challenges that we're dealing with. And I don't know, bridge the gap between that expectation that we have of like what life should be and what life is and what we hope it to be and where we're at. And so Marty has a book here. Give us a little, kind of download of what this is about. You just kind of read a quote. I feel like it'd be a good launching pad for us.
Absolutely. So this book that I'm going to share with you is The Presence Process by Michael Brown. This was actually a book that my wife introduced me to. And it actually aligns with one of my favorite quotes by Alan Watts, who I look at as a teacher. And I have that as my bookmark. Floppy there. But ultimately what it says is, stop measuring days by degree of productivity and start experiencing them by degree of presence. And so this book, which I started reading, definitely spoke to me, and have just now began to really get into it, not even really past like the forward or the acknowledgments. But the first, there's a quote on the first page here in the forward, which I'll read, which is by Rumi, and it goes like this. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and attend them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. And I think as part of the human condition, both as first and foremost as humans, we are going to experience the highs and lows of life. It's a given. And particularly in leadership, you're going to experience the highs and lows in business. And it's, for me, I'm very much leaning into kind of the growth thing. So Wes, really admire your leaning into like the growth angle of like, hey, kind of going to combat that sense of negative self-talk. Richard, I'm sure you've got some growth angles that you're working on. And for myself, just going to, for me, not only being present, but to look to situations and understand that there's a chance to either react or respond. And I think that is not only telling in how our relationships with others are going to evolve and the quality of those relationships, but it's also going to dictate the quality of the way that we see ourselves.
Yeah.
And the way that we
makes sense.
The level of confidence that we might have, or the way we choose to view the world, or our mindsets, or even our ability to be resilient in the face of challenge. And I think even just maybe this is my sleepless brain working, but there's never, it's full on filter. Move.
Hell yeah.
That I think there's something uniquely human about experiencing those challenges, but it's also something that we aren't necessarily, or even as leaders or even as humans, oftentimes given either the quote unquote training or the ways to be able to navigate situations. And we oftentimes have to figure that out on our own, or even maybe see it modeled by somebody else, or through trial and error. But it can very well get us into our own kind of sticky negative feedback loops, right, if we don't know how to kind of climb out of it. So curious that how you were able to climb out of your moment of hitting the 1 star, waking it up, and be like, I'm not going to allow this to pull me down. And
you're like, well, it did.
But how do you bounce back? How do we turn it around?
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, the 1 star wake up was definitely that's what I'm calling today. This has been a bit of this is kind of my crucible of life that I just realized, like, I think this is going to be an old friend of mine for my whole life, is just the idea that I'm never really going to actually believe that I'm like enough at stuff, like I can work really hard and I can learn as much as possible and grow as much as possible. But I don't think there's ever going to be a time in my life where I'm like going to, whether it's subconscious or consciously, just acknowledge like, yeah, I'm good. Like I'm actually really good and capable at stuff. I think it's going to be a constant pursuit of, I'm going to try and get there. But there is something very freeing in that. It does release me from feeling the need to, or maybe put it a different way, is it prompts me to keep trying to reach the pinnacle, keep it on. Yeah. And so I think like on my, at the end of all things, I would hope that I would say like, I've learned a lot and I've grown a lot. But there was still so far to go. Yeah. Which seems a little sad.
Well, when you're a learner, I think that's kind of the difference between someone who's learned and someone who's a learner, is that you perpetually position yourself to be in places that make you uncomfortable, which naturally
feels like a really bad idea.
It does.
It's not.
It's not. Well, I mean, I feel like you're the herald of like, hey, you can learn from anything. Which makes sense that your disposition is like, I might always have this part of me that's not quite figured it out. And I don't know. I was just kind of thinking about that, like, because my first response was like, no, dude, you'll figure it out. But that's not fair, because I think if you are a learner, you're constantly putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, which make you question your thoughts, your decisions, your actions.
Well, I wonder if it's like the more that you learn and know, the more you realize how much you don't know.
I don't know. It's not even a wonder, dude.
It's like, you know what I mean?
The happiest old people are the ones who their response is when you say, how are you doing? They're like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like, you look at just like what we know about the earth. It's like some obscene amount of the earth, percentage of the earth we don't know about. Like the ocean. we've explored like
small fraction.
And so like I think and like as complex and as vast as the earth is, like humans are exponentially
Infinitely
more complex than a planet. You know, like it is a wild thing to just like I will freak myself out just tripping out about like, man, there are so many layers to what it takes to this
to work
bag of bones like to work,
not
just to work, but also like the depth and complexity of like not just the physiology, but the spiritual and metaphysical and all the things. It's like, wow, we are endlessly fascinating and hopelessly just doomed to struggle with like this, like philosophers since the dawning of time, it's like, what is man? What is the meaning of life? What is all this stuff? And I just think the acceptance that we're never probably going to have it figured out is like scary as hell, but also freeing. It's just like, it kind of releases you from feeling the need to be perfect at anything.
Yeah.
So it seems that there's just like that balance trick of life of if I feel so far one way that life is so meaningless, I kind of I can anchor back into the things that are really like genuinely serious. It could be about family. It could be about work. It could be about relationships. It can be about myself or goals and what have you. But then if I feel like I'm getting too bogged in to those areas, I should probably helicopter back up into that sense of like, it's not, there is at the end of the day, none of us get out of this alive. And if there's things that we can do to make the ride as enjoyable as possible,
fun.
Well, like while we're here, because I think maybe this was another Alan Watts quote. I think the secret of life is to live life. I totally came into my head and I lost it. But I think it's not so much trying to find the secret of life, but just to live the life while we have the chance.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to relationships and even within leadership, the things that we could do or maybe even should do for our people and for the teams around us is to be as much as we can a consistent presence. And that there is some, not only a consistency of like physically being present, but there's a consistency and a willingness to connect with people, to understand. And that type of connection and curiosity can actually lead to those moments in which where life does feel meaningful. Even with it, whether it be within the context of work or not.
I wonder, because we talk obviously a lot to businesses, organizations, but we've kind of said like, hey, like defining or like kind of figuring out the difference between, the cosmic problem of like, well, none of us are getting out of this alive, with still then deriving meaning from the now, from what's happening today and only today. But as you guys are both talking, I was thinking, we preach to organizations, you got to have culture, you got to have values, got to have vision. And I believe for us to really derive meaning and have fun in that too, as an individual, as a leader, as someone who leads those teams, you kind of need to have almost like then your personal version of that too. You have to have personal vision for that. You have to have because if I don't know what I truly value in my life, if I don't have that, and again, that could be work, but if you've not clearly defined that to you, like I know my family, we have a set of 4 core values that we've lived by for like a decade. And so now it becomes a litmus test for like, does this align with who we want to be and why we want to do what we want to do? And so I think that even speaking to, I'm kind of curious, have you guys had experience with leaders, like helping them define their own set of values and vision for their life? Because then again, we talk organization a lot, but organization is it's just a great
collection of people
word for a collection of people doing something together.
No, it's funny you mentioned that because it's a video that we're going to be shooting very shortly for our community, is around how to articulate your own values.
Okay.
because you do bring them to the workplace and they do drive a lot of behavior. And what I have found is that when I am not feeling super great about me, it's because I'm doing things that are antithetical to my values. I'm living opposite to those.
Yeah.
And if you haven't spent the time to articulate them, it really does have a lot of ramifications about your just overall sense of well-being.
Yeah.
Because when you are operating outside of
it's ambiguous. You're like, I don't know what's good or bad.
Yeah. I mean, if you're so reactive to the world around you, okay, you are giving up that little bit of power that you have, because you're like, I'm just reacting to things that are coming from me externally, instead of saying, I'm going to carve my own path. You know, like if you're a boat and you don't have a motor or paddles, or you're not putting any work or energy, you are going to forever be just at the mercy of the water. But if you,
that's great,
like your values, your vision, your purpose and intention, and this is where confidence gets built. So we had kind of like, what are we going to talk about today? And it was, all of us were like, you know, I just want to talk about what it's like when life kicks you in the teeth, because life will kick you in the teeth sometimes. Right. And there's really two options when that happens. You can throw your hands up, give up, and just say that the waves are going to take me where they're going to take me. And that is a choice. And there are times in life where maybe that's the right choice, because it's just like, I don't know what else to do. Or there's times where you would lean into values, you would lean into like, you know what, the ocean feels very tumultuous right now. Yeah. But I'm going to keep on paddling, and I'm going to paddle in the direction that I think is right. Yeah. I don't know, because at the end of it, we don't know. We don't know anything.
Shenanigans.
We don't know anything.
Mushrooms.
But it's like, I don't know, but here's what I believe. And like, I'm going to just keep on paddling. And, you know, then there's the counterbalance of like, you know, the great philosopher Kenny Loggins, like, got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. Like sometimes I'm just going to throw up my hands. I'm just philosopher Kenny Loggins. It's Kenny. Yep. Kenny Loggins. Yeah.
Okay. It is.
No, Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers. Yeah. Kenny Loggins was Highway to the Danger Zone. I always get those two mixed up.
Both fantastic.
Yeah. But you know, we had talked a little bit about before this episode, like we should like start mixing in some life stuff, because we are the forever advocates that there's no such thing as work-life balance. And if all this podcast does is talk about work, we are not living.
We're not even living
our values, like you know, because work is important, and we want to help leaders build organizations. But to your point, organizations are just a collection of people trying to figure this crap out, but they're just doing it together. Yeah. And so if we don't acknowledge that, right, and then this is where values and purpose and vision play a really important role, because we're all still going to be on the ocean. We're all still going to have waves that come. Sometimes the surf's going to be high. Sometimes the surf's going to be low. Sometimes the water's going to be choppy. Sometimes the water's going to be like glass and easy sailing. But the point is, like, are we moving the boat in the direction that makes us feel good organizationally? And are we moving the boat that makes us feel good individually? Yeah.
I feel like you just dropped some knowledge, man. Like something came over you.
I don't even know where the boat metaphor came from.
It was so good. I'm like, dang, bro. Okay. Just dropping wisdom.
I mean, this is like a weird anecdote. Take me 5 minutes, like, or 5 seconds. But my oldest daughter, Elliot. Hey, girl. My oldest daughter, Elliot, wanted to go to, she was like, I would like to go to Catalina, Hawaii for my graduation party. I'm like, Catalina it is. And there was an opportunity for us to rent a boat to just take out into the open water. And I was like, oh, this is very cool, until I got out there and I'm like, I don't know how to drive a boat on the ocean. This is a terrible idea. And the whole time I'm just gripping, and I don't want people to see the panic that I'm feeling as I'm out here. And I'm trying to like remember, do I go into the wake? I don't want to go alongside the wake. I'm just like in my dome. And it does feel like we can grip so hard about leaning into like the acknowledgement, oh, I don't know anything. And that can be very scary. Right. And that can be very, very like feel very unbalancing. Or to Marty's point, I'm going to just have fun with this and come what may.
the two choices to ride the roller coaster of life. You can hold on, fearful, or you can throw your hands up in the air and be like, all right, we just know that these are going to be ups and downs and we're going to have to navigate them, but we get to choose how we
react, how we respond.
Yeah. And even when it comes to those times that life is never, ever going to be a series of ascending highs, but it will never, well, ideally, never be, well, I was going to say it will never be flat either.
Right. No.
And there can be things and choices that can dig us into deeper holes, but those holes can also give us a chance to, the momentum on the downswing can also propel us on the upswing.
Yeah.
And it's even strange. I think actually my wife mentioned this earlier today, that she was reading something, can't recall if it's an article or what have you, but some lady maybe back 100 years ago said, like, there's really no down. Like if you were to dig a hole between here, this point of the earth, and dig down, you would emerge
on the
other side, up in your sky, and stars will still be above you.
Yeah.
There will be things that will kick you in the teeth, kick you in the nuts, that will just be brutal. And they'll ideally, the opportunity in that is to try to avoid that sense of like getting bitter and stuck. Dude. And instead of wishing that it didn't happen, just kind of wishing to be better as opposed to bitter.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think it. I just joked to you guys. You're the old guys in the room. The difference between 41 and 36 apparently is catastrophic. So I'm looking forward to that.
Enjoy your youth, sir.
No, but I mean, I remember being so young and full of life, and then life starts kicking you in the teeth, and you start to become. It's so easy to become cynical and pessimistic, and it is shockingly easy to become so angry and bitter at just all parts of life, and then you start to derive anger out of just nothing sometimes. And so it becomes this perpetual feedback loop of like cynicism, bitterness, and then you're looking for it unintentionally.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like breaking that pattern is so difficult, but when you do, something like things start to, even if life stays exactly the same, things start to look and feel totally different. And I think I'm kind of curious, you guys, you mentioned you have walked people through like a personal vision. I mean, could you give just values? Like a quick, values. Could you give just kind of like a quick, crash course on, hey, what would that look like? I think there's a lot of people who would listen. I mean, even given your article, like this is a kind of a 50-50 coin toss on whether or not this season is a great or awful season for people.
Yeah.
So how can we rewrite this narrative a little bit? Even for us, frankly, I'm hearing this. I'm like, dang, values. I got to get back my values. Got to get back to that gratitude. It's like, it's so easy to just flip that switch back to pessimism and bitterness and not look at it as like, no, better. Better.
Yeah. Because I think our culture is kind of rooted there.
Say it.
Our culture has been rooted into conditioning people to look for the negative, to react, to grab attention, to
it sells.
Yeah, it sells. It's what gets amplified. You hear about all the negative news as opposed to the positive news. And so there's so much of just the way that not only do we communicate and absorb information, but the way that we treat people and the way others are celebrated for the way that they treat people in generally not cool ways. But the things that we can do as leaders and as
how
humans
do we swim upstream?
How do we build a rudder? How do we build a vehicle to navigate the currents of life? Very much is identifying. This is going to sound like probably sounds simple. This is the first to try to identify like, who the heck do you want to be? And that, like, okay, what is the person describe, kind of envision who you are, what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you look like, whatever. But think of who your ideal self.
Yeah.
Like if you could kind of wish for these attributes, wish for these things, and be that person, let's think about what that is first, because it's kind of strange. Like a vision isn't necessarily to pull you to that spot. A vision actually comes from you.
Kind of unearths from you.
Yeah. And so it's a little different. There is a combination of, yes, a bit chasing the horizon, but it all has to start kind of internally.
Right.
And so understanding first kind of who is it the person that you want to be? Why is that person important to you, whether it's to yourself, for your own self-confidence, for your family, for the people who count on you, for your team, for your business, what have you. And then really try to not only envision that person and think, well, that person seems so far off, but is that, it may not be practical, but can you at least kind of think that, is there a fraction of you that can wrap your head that it is at least possible?
Yeah. That's great.
And so if you can feel that, yes, this might be a 1 in 100 chance or 1 in 1,000, but hey, tell me there's a chance.
There was the odds of you being born.
Yeah, exactly. Infinitesimally
so
small.
You're saying there's a chance.
Saying there's a chance. Okay, now we can think about if I'm this type of person who might behave in this type of way, what are the things that I need to either believe in or not just believe in from like kind of a mindset, but what are the things that I need to do to align my attitudes, my behaviors, and my actions?
Right.
And look at the way that if we were to take this into like the culture framework, like how do I take care of myself? Or like how do I treat myself?
Yeah.
Maybe that's not part of the culture framework, but how do I treat myself as kind of this for your personal values? How do you treat others?
Other people,
How do you around you? How do you treat others who may not necessarily be in your family unit, or you're kind of just like quote unquote the people who are on this rock at the same time with
6,999,000,000 people.
Yeah. How are you communicating? How are you viewing and solving problems? How are you showing up? And that can give you an idea to really start like, what are the characteristics that you are embodying and embracing as this individual, and use those to influence and define your values.
Yeah.
I think the other part of it is it's very easy to look at the world externally and use that as a means to let ourselves off the hook a little bit. If I'm just being honest, the thing that I have experienced and done, but I see most frequently in folks, is that they will look at the world around them and it play like this game of chicken where it's like, well, the world needs to change before me. And I because the only thing we can control is us.
Is me.
Because the only thing that we can control is our actions and our attitudes and our behaviors. When you get stuck in that cynicism loop, or when you get stuck in the kind of woe is me, you get the boo-hoos or whatever.
Right.
I don't think we ask ourselves the question enough of like, what's behind this for me? Why are these emotions coming up for me? And I'm willing to bet even money that the vast majority is going to be rooted in fear. I'm afraid of something.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of something. I'm afraid I'm going to let someone down. I'm afraid I'm not going to be successful. I'm afraid that I'm making a bad decision. The root of that is typically fear. And so like really when I feel something in the world and something is like eliciting a reaction,
right?
Taking that time to ask myself, what is my concern here?
Yeah.
What am I afraid of? Because I'm afraid of something. And our reaction as humans when we're afraid of something is to get defensive.
Right.
Get angry or freeze. And so if we get very curious, one of my encouragements for leaders or, anybody out there is be endlessly curious about you.
Yeah.
When you have a feeling or an emotion that pops up, instead of looking at the world and saying, you made me feel this way, whether it's a person, whether it's an organization, whether it's on the news or whatever, take some time to just look in the mirror and go, what about this situation is eliciting this response? This is where our emotions become very instructive, because we can look at it and say, wow, there's something in here for me. And that can help you like, oh, somebody's infringing on a deeply seated value that I have,
right.
or this is not how I think the world should be. But remember that that's part of you that you got to own.
Right.
And then the next thing is stop blaming everyone else for your attitudes
for where
and
you're
actions.
at.
I mean, that blame cycle is really, really, really problematic.
Totally. And it's also can be very difficult as we come back into the confidence, like kind of how this ties directly into the confidence conversation is that you can do everything right. You can do everything right and still lose.
Yep.
You are in control of your efforts only, but not the result.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, it is something that I am actively working on is I'm not going to predicate my success or define my success on the outcome of others.
Right.
If I can do that, look in the mirror and say, I did everything.
The
effort was there. The good intentions were there. I'm going to make, I feel good about what I did. Now I got to let fate, universe, whatever decide. But I still got to feel good about me. But it is so easy to get into that blame game of like, well, it's the world around me. But that's where we end up in that you're in a marching band and everyone else is marching out of step but you.
Right.
And that is a very seductive thing because it means that I don't have to do the hard work.
Yeah, I don't have to own it.
I don't have to do that because it's you. It's a you problem. The vast majority of our life are self-inflicted things that we are making choices that are either antithetical to our values or are demonstrably self-destructive. we are choosing to do that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you were talking about, because I don't know if this is a term, but there's kind of that, what makes us so infinitely complex is that we have our conscious self, and then we have like the thoughts that come to our mind, and then we can actually think about those thoughts, then manifesting in our physical self.
Oh, it's the best.
And it's so, I mean, it really is hard to get, for lack of better words, to get the opinion of that third man down, if you will. You know what I mean? And I think all the way back to presence, there's like a book. I don't even know the guy's name. It's called The Power of Now. It's this German guy, and he's the one who actually also talks it out on the audiobook.
Oh, nice.
And so, but he literally, his whole point is like everything about your ability to control you, not your reactions, but actually do something, has to do with you being able to be present in this moment. And if you cannot center yourself on that, and this isn't even just like pseudo, this is just physiological scientific fact.
Yep.
Is that if you cannot bring yourself to the now, you're unable to have that perspective of that third man. You have to quiet yourself enough to actually hear from that person. But we're so busy and hurried and worried and fearful and all these things that it's so hard. But it is possible. It really is.
And Jess, thanks for sharing that. And just one last thought for me on this is that even the things that we think about the past and the things that we wish we would have done differently, or what's ahead of us, and thinking of that through, that's all occurring in the internal now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Right. Yeah. You're just now thinking about the thing that happened then.
Yeah, absolutely. And even so, when it comes to these types of situations, I need to remind myself, okay, you might be operating from your own memory of this, and you should really be operating from your imagination.
Right. Oh, that's great.
So this kind of had a conversation with my son last night, kind of like, oh, what do you do when you feel sad about something that was so great that happened, but you don't have it anymore? Well, you have to kind of look at it from the perspective which we spoke about, and but be glad. You can be sad that it happened, that it's over, but you can also be glad that that since it did happen, it can happen again.
Yeah.
And you can do that. And I think you look at life through kind of like the analogy of the windshield and the rear view mirror. What we see, what's behind us in our rear view mirrors, to be informative of where we've been.
Yeah.
But to look forward, the windshield is much larger for that intention to tell us not only where we are, but where we're going.
Yeah.
And I think if we can develop our own sense of perspective and and align our actions to get us to be the people that we want to be. That is where resilience and confidence comes from, but it doesn't come without confrontation. It doesn't come without resistance,
friction, tension. I mean, you can't. It's impossible. What makes it so beautiful is because it's under tension. You know, I mean, it's like music, like
diamonds.
The guitar ain't gonna play unless there's friction or unless there's tension on the strings.
Yeah,
and so it's this necessary part, but it's also infuriating. You know, it's like, why can't life just be great? You know,
but I think
it's a beautiful mess.
I think and I won't say hard, I will say the saddest part, to take it to the car, if that's what, since we're there.
Why not? Car
is
boats,
that
let's do it.
I have seen far too many people pull over. They pull over to the shoulder of the road and then they just stare at that rearview mirror. And they don't actually ever go anywhere. Yeah. And to me, and maybe I need to go sit on the couch for a little bit and unpack this, but to me, that seems way harder and way sadder, and just like, because I think when you try to do something and it doesn't work out, that's an opportunity to learn and grow. Yeah, it might be hard and it'll hurt, and it may cause some, but that's where growth comes from. You don't grow when things aren't hard. Right. Okay. Like diamonds and fill in metaphor that fits your lifestyle. But I think not trying is a tragedy. Right. When it's just you're so afraid to even take a step forward. Yeah. You're so afraid to even put your foot on the gas pedal a little bit that you just pull the car over.
They just stop.
And you just, I mean, turn the car off and then you just sit there and wait and take a nap like that. Yeah. That seems like a tragedy.
Well, and we're in a like an epidemic of fear and anxiety, and a lot of it. Yeah. Is the comparison. It's the fear of like not measuring up to some sort of thing that you don't even know that you actually value. You just see that someone else tells you should value it.
Well, and I think Marty demonstrates, having those conversations with our kids, I think is going to be really something that I have been doing in the mornings is we have a family group text.
I love this. Yeah.
That we,
this is great.
It's called the group chat. It was titled by my daughter, but there's so much of this, like, I'm going to put on a front that everything is awesome, solid, all the time. And when you have those messages, when you don't feel that, it becomes so this is where the comparison thing comes. So I think if we can break shatter the veneer that like, oh, we're put together and we have it all figured out all the time. Yeah. There's something that is beautiful, freeing, and also a little bit inspiring about that. It's like, oh, now I don't have to present like I've got it all together, because in this group text, I've been just in the mornings just sharing, here's how I woke up today. Yeah. Because I want my girls and I want my wife, and and a lot of it about it is for me. I want to just be honest with where I'm at in my journey, because it is my journey and I get to own that. Yeah. Or I can ignore it. And I don't want to ignore it anymore.
Yeah. And well, and I think, as we kind of wrap this episode up, we've talked about that even in organizational, like, hey, just be human, like present yourself as you are, not as you hope to be, or as what you feel like business is implying that you should be. And that problem exists in the workplace because it's just a thing. It's a challenge that we all have. It's like, we often are walking around with this veneer of what we want to be versus, hey dude, I'm like struggling, man. Like, help me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, just help me. Again, that's just one simple example of like breaking that down. And so I would even say my encouragement is like just actionables, like, hey, really consider for yourself now, what are the things that you're presenting that are just not even close to the things that's happening internally. And I don't want to oversimplify it, but as you start to kind of unearth that, at least now you understand, like, oh, I'm actually kind of a bitter person. Yeah. Like, I'm not trying to go put on a veneer of this. Like, I'm actually bitter. Now you can actually address it. Yep. Named it, saddled it and rid it, And so, I don't know. I think I think there's a lot we could continue to unpack, but just for the sake of time and, life, life moves at you fast.
All right, Ferris.
Yes. We'll kind of wrap up there, but if you guys have any questions, hey, please feel free to comment. Find us culturesoak.com, go to our Instagram, LinkedIn. We'd love to talk more to you guys and even just be a resource of help and hope and all the goods,
Yeah.
So
if you see us on a line, feel free to, even if you want to send a DM, I'll be your pen pal.
Dude. Yep. Well, with that, boys, cheers. As we always say, that was like a little shoot. As we always say, Culture Soak, happier people,
better results.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Culture Stoke podcast. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, and rate us wherever you tune in. Share this episode with anybody who could use a culture boost. Until next time, keep stoking the fire.